Selling on Poshmark is simple. You just have to do these 5 steps over and over again. Number 1, find what items you want to sell on Poshmark. Number 2, prep the items that you want to sell on Poshmark. Number 3, photograph the items that you want to sell on Poshmark. Number 4, list the items that you want to sell on Poshmark. And finally, ship whatever it is that you sold on Poshmark. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and don't... Okay, so while it is that simple, it's not actually that simple. So let's do a little bit deeper of a dive into each of those 5 steps. Hi everyone, my name is Becky Park and I have actually been selling on Poshmark since December of 2017. I discovered Poshmark when I did a Google search on how to sell clothes online, and that's when I learned about Poshmark. It started as a way for me to just sell clothes that my husband and I no longer wore, but as I scoured the internet for more tips on how to sell more of my items, sell them more quickly, I learned through YouTube and blogs that there were people who were actually making a full-time income by selling on Poshmark.
Really?
So here I am 5 years later after listing my first item on Poshmark, and I'm still a Poshmark seller. It's something that I do on the side as a side hustle to my full-time job as a high school choir teacher. And in my time on Poshmark, I have sold over 4,000 items and done almost $100,000 in sales. So now let's talk about how you can make some money on Poshmark. Down in the description below, I do have timestamps so that you can kind of jump around in the video, especially if you revisit this in the future. You can just get to the part that you really need to learn a little bit more about. And don't forget to share this video as well with any of your friends or family who may also be interested in selling on Poshmark. So the first step is to find items that you want to sell. Most likely you're watching this video because you have stuff in your home that you want to get rid of and you want to get some money for those items. So personally, I think the best way to start selling on Poshmark is to sell stuff from your own home. Maybe it's clothes that you don't wear anymore. Maybe it is stuff from your kitchen that you no longer use because you've upgraded. You can actually sell a lot of different things on Poshmark. So you want to kind of go through your house, see what items you're no longer wearing or using, and those would be great candidates for items that you can list on Poshmark. You want to make sure that these items are in good condition. You know, ask yourself if it's in good enough condition that you would buy it on the internet from someone else. And especially with things like clothes, you want to stick with things that are trendy. That doesn't mean that they have to be new or even from the last, few years. For example, something that's trending right now is vintage clothing, especially like 90s and Y2K styles. So if you happen to come across a few boxes from clothes that you wore when you were in high school, even though those things are not new and they're not from the last few years, those are things that a lot of people are looking for online on reselling platforms like Poshmark. So it would actually be a really good idea to list those items because they're trendy. They're not new, but they are the type of thing that people are currently searching for online. Finally, you just want to make sure that you try to sell decent brands on Poshmark. And what I mean by that is if you're selling clothes, I personally would stay away from trying to sell stuff from like Walmart, just because clothes from Walmart is pretty cheap to begin with, even when you buy it retail at the store. So it's a little bit more difficult to make any profit off of that item if you sell it on Poshmark. Clothes from places like Walmart, personally, I would just rather donate to your local thrift store because it may not be worth your time to go through all of the steps that we're going to talk about next when it comes to selling an item on Poshmark. Now, like I said earlier, I learned that there were people actually making a full-time income selling on Poshmark. Obviously, that wasn't from just selling their own stuff because they would very quickly run out of things to wear, but instead what I learned is that people would go out to places like garage sales, thrift stores, consignment stores, you name it, and they would find items for cheap and then they would sell them on Poshmark for more money. This is how they're able to make a full-time income selling on Poshmark. So if you have been selling stuff from around your house and you realize there's really nothing left to sell, like we've done a very good job of Marie Kondoing our place, then if you love this experience of selling on Poshmark, then you would graduate to going to other places and finding items to buy for as cheap as possible and then selling those items on Poshmark. So let's say you've got all of this stuff that you want to sell, whether it's stuff that you found in your own home or maybe you found stuff at a garage sale that you know has some value. Now you have to prep those items so that they're ready for you to photograph to list on Poshmark. By prepping an item, I just mean making sure that it's in the best condition that it can possibly be in. For example, if you're selling clothes, if the last time you wore that pair of Lululemon leggings was, for a super intensive workout, I would put them in the wash. I would just make sure that they don't have like an offensive odor. If you're a smoker or if you have pets in the home, I would again definitely make sure that you put your stuff through the wash just to get those odors out. And then you want to make sure that your clothes are wrinkle free. You just want them to look good in the pictures that we're going to talk about in the next step, because that is the only thing that potential buyers have to go off of when it comes to seeing your item on Poshmark. And so you want to prep items by washing them, cleaning them. Maybe you want to lint roll a shirt or something. You just want to make sure that whatever it is that you're selling looks the best that it possibly can. All right, so you have the item that you want to sell, you've prepped it, it looks the best that it possibly can. Your next step is photographing the item that you want to sell on Poshmark. Now, one thing you have to do when it comes to photographing items for Poshmark is you have to photograph in square mode. Now, I'll be honest, I'm kind of an Apple snob, so I'm going to show you how to get to square mode from an iPhone. So I'm going to go ahead and open my camera app, and I'm going to click on this little arrow up on top. When I click that, I'm going to see some options down below, like you can turn on or turn off your flash, you can change the exposure, but I'm going to go ahead and choose the button that says 4:3. If I click on that, you'll notice that it says square mode in the middle, so I'm going to click on that, and now you notice that the picture is now a square versus a rectangle. If you forget to put your phone in square mode, it can be challenging because while you can crop rectangular pictures, usually what happens is you're going to have to cut off a portion of the picture. You're going to miss, either the bottom or the top of whatever it is that you're trying to sell. And that makes it a little bit more difficult for potential buyers to see what it is that you're selling when your picture that you're showing them of the item is missing a portion of the item because you weren't in square mode. So step number 1 is to make sure that you put your phone in square mode. Now, if you search on Poshmark, you'll see that people take all kinds of pictures when it comes to the items that they're selling. If people are selling clothes, sometimes people will model the clothes that they're trying to sell, which can make for a really good presentation. Sometimes people will put clothes on mannequins or on dress forms. Sometimes people will hang them on a hanger on the wall. I've seen people put clothes on the floor or on their bed or hang clothes from their door or from a closet. You can do whatever it is that you want, but again, you're just trying to create the best possible presentation so that when someone looks at your pictures, one, your pictures are a good representation of what it is that you're selling, and what you're selling is the main focus of the picture. And two, you want to give them confidence that the item is coming from a clean and well-kept home. Now, the reason I say that is because I have seen a lot of pictures from Poshmark listings where people will literally just throw a garment on the floor, and you can also see in the frame, things like shopping bags or food or like the toe of a child. These are things that maybe you don't want in the frame. So like I said earlier, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're selling is front and center and that there aren't other things in the picture to distract from that item. For me personally, I like to take pictures of most of my items on a hanger, hang it on a wall, and I like to create as white of a background as possible so that, again, there's nothing distracting the buyer from what it is that I'm trying to sell them. It's also been proven on some other platforms. I don't know if this is necessarily true of Poshmark, but it has been proven that other platforms will favor listings with pictures that have white backgrounds versus, a background with like a design or all these different decorations. A white background is simple, non-cluttered, and it seems to also be the favorite of a lot of different reselling platforms. Another key component to taking good photographs is having good lighting. For me personally, I rely on natural light, which means I can only photograph during the day, but that means I don't have to purchase any crazy like light kits or box lights. I find that taking pictures in natural daylight provides enough light, especially if I'm able to go in after the fact and do a little bit of editing, whether it's raising the exposure of my pictures or using different photo editing apps that I'll talk about in a little bit. But you want to make sure that you're taking pictures of your items in a well-lit area, again, so that potential buyers can see exactly what it is that you're selling. Now, what do you need to photograph? When it comes to clothes, I like to take pictures of the front and the back of the item. I like to kind of like zoom in if there's a detail, like perhaps I want to show off the fact that this particular shirt is ribbed, and if I can zoom in, I can show the ribbing of the shirt. For this listing here, there was like a little pin that was on this garment, and so I took a close-up of the pin. So you want to make sure that you provide an overall picture. You know, this is what the garment looks like front and back in its entirety, but you also want to show any details that people may find interesting. I also make sure to photograph things like the label. I photograph the care tag that has information about what the garment is made out of, and I also take photographs of the measurements for each garment because I want to make sure that people know what the measurements are so that they know if the item will fit them or not. The last thing that you want to make sure you include in your pictures are any flaws that there might be on the item that you're trying to sell. So if there's a little stain or a little rip or a button is missing, I always make sure to take pictures of those things and then also include information about the flaw in the listing description, which we're going to talk about here in a second, because I want to make sure that people know exactly what it is that they're going to be getting. And I even want them to see visually through my pictures what the flaw is and where it is. Finally, when I'm done taking pictures of my items, I do like to go through and edit them. I don't edit all of my pictures. For example, I don't feel the need to edit pictures of the label or of the care tag, but I will edit especially the cover photo. So I use 2 photo editing apps. This is a little excessive. You don't have to do all of this. Like I said earlier, you can simply just raise the exposure, but I use 2 apps. The first one is called Pick Tap Go, and I use that because there's a really great filter called Lights On that basically makes your item look like it's got a ton of light on it, whether it's daylight, whether it's box lights. It just looks like you were photographing that item in a very well lit space. So I use that app first, and then I go in and use an app called Photo Room, because what Photo Room does is it will eliminate the background. So if there's anything in the background, it'll get rid of it and it'll give you a nice clean white background. That's pretty easy for it to do given the fact that I'm photographing my items on a wall, but I mean, it even works for my thumbnails. So if you see this picture right here, there's a lot going on in the background, but Photo Room is able to erase everything that's in the background and all you see is me, which is what I want for my thumbnails because I want the focus to be me. So I use Pick Tap Go first to increase the lighting, and then I use Photo Room to create that clean, crisp white background that I'm looking for. And if you want a tutorial on Photo Room, I do have one right here that you can check out, but it is a really great app that I highly recommend to anyone who wants to sell on Poshmark. But can you take really great pictures even without these 2 apps? Absolutely. This is me kind of taking it next level here. All right, so you have found the items that you want to sell, you have prepped said items, and you have photographed them. Now what you need to do is you need to list those items, which means you have to put them up for sale on Poshmark. Now every listing on Poshmark consists of 5 components, and for this portion of the video, I'm going to show you a listing of mine as we go through these 5 components. There are the pictures for the listing that we already talked about. There's the listing title, there's the listing description, item specifics, and the price. Now, I like to think that the most important piece of your listing are the pictures. And we've already talked extensively about how to take good pictures, but let me drive this point home a little more. Potential buyers only see 3 things when it comes to your listing at first. They see your cover photo, which is the first picture out of all of the pictures in your listing. They see your listing title, and they see the price of your item. If those 3 things do not work together and please your potential buyer, they're not even going to click on your listing. They're not even going to send you an offer or buy the item outright. They're just going to move on to someone else's listing. So if you can imagine, even if you're selling a really great item, your listing title is great, and you have this item priced well, but you took the picture of the item in your bathroom and you can see the toilet in the background, and you can see a dirty sink, chances are they're going to scroll right past your listing and go to someone else's who has a better cover photo. That's why your cover photo is so important. It is probably the biggest reason someone either stopped to look at your listing or kept on scrolling. The next component of a listing is the listing title. Now you get 80 characters for your listing title, so you want to make them count. There is some debate as to whether or not you should use all 80 characters, and that's because not too long ago, Poshmark changed how listings showed up in search when someone went to search for something using Poshmark's search engine, and they did it in a way where it didn't favor people who used all 80 characters. However, However, it seems like they've gone back to normal when it comes to their search functionality, but I personally recommend that you use as many characters as possible in an effort to be as descriptive as possible in your listing title. The reason for that is because the way that search works on Poshmark now and the way that it worked before they tweaked with their search functionality is that when someone types something into the search bar on Poshmark, Poshmark is going to show that potential buyer all of the listings that most closely relate to what it was that the buyer was searching for. So for that reason, I personally recommend including information like the name of the brand, the color, the materials used, important keywords that help describe the item. I would specify if it's a men's piece, a women's piece, or a children's piece. I would include the size. And if you have any characters left over, I would find more descriptive words to use. So for example, here is one of my listings. And if you look at the listing title, it says Anne Maurice, which is the brand name, woven, which speaks to the texture and style of this jacket, Americana, patriotic. Those I would say are keywords that help describe the jacket, but are also words that people may use when they're searching for items on Poshmark. And then I have the words sweater jacket because I couldn't really decide if this was a sweater or a jacket, so I called it a sweater jacket. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree. I wrote women's extra large because it is a women's piece and it is a size extra large. And then I had some characters left over, so I wrote the word wood buttons because I really genuinely believe that these wooden buttons were one of the coolest parts of this jacket. So there's a lot of information in that listing title for Poshmark to pull from when it comes to, someone searching for something on the search engine. Hopefully this jacket will get a lot of hits for terms like Americana, patriotic, for the brand, which is Anne Maurice, for wood buttons. Hopefully if people are searching these terms using the Poshmark search engine, then they will get a hit for this particular jacket. So for that reason, I highly recommend refraining from using emojis because people are not searching in the Poshmark search engine with emojis. And I would also refrain from using adjectives like cute. Most likely, people are not searching for cute top using the Poshmark search engine because cute is a subjective term. What I may think is cute, you may find hideous. People are most likely not searching for fun pants. So fun would be kind of a waste of 3 characters to put in your listing title. However, a pretty common search term is something along the lines of little black dress or LBD because that term is part of our vernacular when it comes to fashion. It's been said that everyone should own a little black dress. So even though that's kind of a generic term to use in your listing title, it's probably safe to assume that people have searched for that exact phrase on Poshmark and that people have made sales on their little black dresses because they put that in their listing title. So you really want to kind of put yourself in the mindset of a potential buyer and ask yourself, what is it that people would search for in order to find this particular item that I'm trying to sell? And then put those words in your listing title. Now, the next part of a listing is the listing description. This is where you simply get more space to talk about the item that it is that you're trying to sell. For your listing title, you had 80 characters. In your listing description, you get 1,500 characters to be exact. And any of the words or information that you put in the description will also be used by Poshmark when it comes to trying to figure out which listings to show a potential buyer. If you have certain words in your description that the potential buyer is searching for, even though maybe you couldn't fit those words in your listing title, Poshmark could potentially still show your item to a potential buyer because you have them in your description. This is where you can, if you want, paint a picture for your buyer regarding the item. This is where you can use adjectives like cute and fun, even though, again, they're still kind of subjective terms. So again, this is where you can include a little bit more information about your item, information that wouldn't fit in your listing title, but this is also where you should mention any flaws that there may be on the garment itself. And for me personally, this is where I put information regarding measurements for the item. Now, I don't actually type out my measurements in the description, but I have a sentence in my description where I talk about the fact that I've taken pictures of of the measurements to have measurements or not have measurements. This is a big debate within the reselling community, but I will tell you from personal experience that I don't buy things like pants from Poshmark sellers if they don't provide measurements, because I am extremely sure I have the shortest legs on this planet and I need to know what the inseam of pants are, because 90% of all the pants in the world are too long for me. And so if a seller doesn't include measurements, whether it's in their pictures or they've typed it out in their description, I'm simply not going to purchase from that seller, because I can't risk something not fitting me and then me not being able to return it, because Poshmark does not allow buyers to return items due to fit. So I do think you should include measurements, whether you put them in your description, you type them out, or you have a sentence like I do regarding the measurement. But you can see from my listing description for this Anne Marie's jacket, the kind of information that I put in the description, just so it paints a complete picture of the garment for my potential buyer. The truth is, it is hard to buy online, and that's because you don't get to see the item physically, you don't get to hold it in your hand and feel the fabric. So this is your opportunity in the listing description to make your potential buyer feel like they know everything they need to know about the item that they might be buying. So yes, the listing description is important, but don't let yourself get too hung up on the details. I know a lot of Poshmark sellers get stuck here. They don't know how much or how little they need to write. I would say keep it pretty simple. Just include information that you think people have to know regarding your garment. The next component of a listing are the item specifics. These are things like the category, quantity, like how many of this same exact item are you selling, the size, the brand, the color, tags, style tags, etc. So let's talk first about category. Your options when it comes to category are women, men, kids, home, pets, and electronics. Next, they're going to ask you about quantity. The only time that you would have a quantity of more than one is if you have multiples of the same exact thing. And that could be like the same pair of jeans, but in like 3 different sizes. For example, I know some people when they buy clothes online, they'll buy the same item, but in 3 different sizes because they don't know which one will fit them. But perhaps you find yourself in the situation where you didn't return the items that didn't fit you on time, so you're just kind of stuck with them, and now you're trying to sell them on Poshmark. So if that's the case, instead of having to create individual listings for each item, you could say, I have 3 pairs of these Everlane pants. They're all the same summer jean. I just have 3 in different sizes. And then you would specify which sizes you have available. The next item specific is size. You do want to be careful here because there are lots of options. For example, within women's sizing, you can choose from regular sizing, you can choose from petite or plus size or maternity. So you want to make sure that you're selecting the correct specification of size as well. The next item specific is brand. Poshmark has a database of a ton of brands to begin with, and if the brand of what it is that you're trying to sell is within the Poshmark database, then you want to select from their database. That makes it much easier for your item to be found while people are searching specifically for that brand. People can literally just search the term Supreme and then just find all items that have Supreme as the brand. So you want to make sure that if your brand is within the database, that you select from the database. However, for this example, from my listing for this Anne Marie's jacket, Anne Marie's was not a brand that was within Poshmark's database, so I just went ahead and typed it in. But the database is nice because it helps you catch perhaps like spelling errors. Let's say you're trying to sell a pair of jeans from Abercrombie and you type the brand name in and it's not showing up in the database. That probably means that you spelled it wrong, because Abercrombie is a pretty well-known brand that they should have. So that'll kind of force you to start over when it comes to typing in the brand name. And one thing you'll notice with Poshmark is as you're typing in the brand name, it'll show you which brands from within their database fit given the letters that you've started typing. The next item specific is color. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you're selling a white shirt, then you would just select white. If you're selling a blue and white striped polo shirt, you would select blue and white as your colors. You can select up to 2 colors. The next item specific is new with tags. Again, this is extremely self-explanatory. If your item still has a tag attached to it, you can select the new with tags option. However, if the item doesn't have the tag attached to it, Don't say that it's new with tags. And then there's a little kind of like sub option of boutique. I'm just going to go ahead and say that you probably will not select boutique. Boutique means that you have purchased items wholesale and you are selling them as part of your boutique as a boutique item. If you are just starting out on Poshmark, this is probably not you. So I would just go ahead and say, no, I'm not selling this as part of my boutique. The next item specific is style tags. This is a relatively new item specific for Poshmark listings. And one thing that you'll notice about a lot of these item specifics is that a lot of them are optional, including the brand. You don't have to put in all of this information. I do recommend that you put in as much information as possible because, again, that's what's going to help people find your items in search. But filling out the tags is similar to filling out the brand in that Poshmark has a database of tags that they feel a lot of people are using when they're searching for items on Poshmark. So for example, here are some of the tags that are in their database. You can see in alphabetical order. Poshmark lets you select up to 3 style tags, and the reason why you would want to use them is, again, people are able to search for items using these style tags, and if there's another way for someone to find your item, why not utilize it? The final component of a listing is the price. This is where some people can get kind of stuck because they don't know how to price their items. Now, the first part within this price section that Poshmark will ask for is the original price. This is not optional, which I think is a little silly because I don't think most people know the original price of items. If you happen to know it, you can put the original price in. I usually just put 0 because I don't know the original price. Some people put numbers like $9,999 as the original price, which it probably wasn't, but they just do that as kind of their generic original price because Poshmark makes you put something in. Obviously, it's not super important what you put in as the original price. What's important is how much you want to price the item for. The best way to figure out how to price an item is to run comps. And what that means is to look at other comparable sales. For example, if you're trying to sell, like right behind me, I have a Nike hoodie. If you're trying to sell a Nike hoodie, I would type Nike hoodie into the search bar. You can get as specific as saying like women's hoodie, and you can put the size and whatnot. I tend to keep it somewhat generic so that I get a lot of hits, but I type in Nike hoodie. I try to see if I can find anything exactly like what I have, but if I don't see anything that's exactly like what I have, then I'll just look for things that are similar. I'll look at how things are priced, but I will also filter by sold listings so that I can see how much items have sold for. And what I'll do is I'll try to find kind of an average of the two. You know, if this particular hoodie consistently has been selling for $25, but everyone who's got it listed has it listed for like $35, there's a few different schools of thought. For example, if you don't mind holding on to the item for a while and waiting to sell it for top dollar, then you can also go ahead and list your item for $35. However, if the goal is to just get rid of as much stuff as possible, then personally what I would do is I would price my item lower than everyone else's so that people see your item and decide to buy yours because it's the best deal. You also have the option of offering discounted shipping right from the get-go. I personally do not utilize this option because I like to offer discounts to buyers on my own terms when I want to. I don't want to offer it right at the beginning because maybe someone will come and just buy my item outright without even needing the discounted shipping. So why would I want to eat the cost of that discounted shipping if I don't have to? The last thing that I'll say about pricing is you want to remember that there are fees involved with selling on Poshmark. With every item that you sell, you do have to give Poshmark a portion of that sale. And so if you look at your listing at the bottom, it'll tell you what your projected profit is once you factor in Poshmark's fees, and if you're going to offer discounted shipping, what your profit will be after discounted shipping as well. So you want to make sure that you're not pricing so low that you'll only come out with, $1 or $2 after all of the hard work that you put into getting that item listed. You want to make sure that you're happy with your potential profit. All right, so you have found items that you want to sell, you have prepped them, you have photographed them, and you have gotten them listed. The fun part is someone sees your listing because your photos are amazing, your listing title has all the pertinent information that someone needs, and they decided to click on your listing, saw that you had all this amazing information in your description, and they decided to buy your item. Maybe they bought it outright by pressing buy it now. Maybe they sent you an offer and you accepted. Maybe you sent them an offer and they accepted your offer. However the sale went down, you made the sale and now you need to ship the item out to the buyer. Shipping on Poshmark, thankfully, could not be easier. It is very simple, and it's because they have a really great relationship with USPS. So essentially, if your item weighs under 5 pounds, you can ship it out to the buyer using almost any of USPS's shipping supplies. Like you can use their flat rate boxes, you can use their priority mail Tyvek envelopes, you can use their big priority mail boxes, you can use their flat rate padded envelopes, you can use almost all of their shipping supplies except for their express shipping supplies. You can also use your own shipping supplies if you want. You can use your own poly mailers, you can use your own boxes. Maybe you've got boxes from online shopping that you did that you just have laying around your house. You can use whatever you want, and when you make the sale, Poshmark will send you an email, and attached to that email will be a shipping label to the buyer. So all you have to do is put the item in the box or in the bag, you slap the label on, and you bring it to your post office and you're good to go. Now, what do you do if you are shipping something out that weighs more than 5 pounds? It's pretty simple. You're going to go to My Sales on your app. You're going to click on the sale, and then you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and there are a few tile options. There's a tile that says Need New Shipping Label. If you click on that, it shows a ton of different reasons as to why you would need a new label, and you simply select Need Heavier Weight Label. Here, you're going to tell Poshmark exactly how much your item weighs. Now, in order to get an accurate weight of your item, you want to make sure that you weigh it after you've put it in its box or its bag, because these things add some weight to your package as well. So once you have it packaged up, if you're worried about whether it's under 5 pounds or not, I use this shipping scale from Accutech. I do have this linked down in my description below. It's extremely cheap. I believe it's under $20, but this tells you exactly how many pounds and ounces something is. So you want to use something like that when you are weighing packages if you're worried that they're going to be over 5 pounds. If your item does weigh over 5 pounds, as you saw, Poshmark makes it super easy for you to purchase a heavier shipping label. It is kind of expensive, but that way you're not going to get in trouble with Poshmark for trying to use their label on something that weighs over 5 pounds. Aside from that, when it comes to shipping, keep it simple. You might see pictures on Instagram of people wrapping their items in tissue and ribbon and glitter and all these things. You don't really need to do any of that. All you have to do is make sure that your item gets to the buyer safe and sound. When I sell clothing items, I do put all of them in these nice little cellophane bags. I have these linked down below as well in a couple of different sizes, but I'll put the clothing item in this bag, and then I will put, this bag inside of a poly mailer or inside of a box, what have you. And that way, not only does it get to the buyer in one piece, but they can see some care was put into the packaging, but this doesn't take me that much time. I used to be one of those people that wrapped it in tissue paper and tied a ribbon or some yarn around it, but it truly isn't necessary. I actually get a lot of great feedback regarding how I package my items, and I've never had anyone get upset with me for not doing more. So I would say keep it simple. Don't stress yourself out when it comes to how you're going to package up the item. Just make sure that it's presentable, professional, and gets to the buyer in one piece. Finally, when it comes to shipping, I would say ship the item out as quickly as possible, because Poshmark does show potential buyers what your average ship time is. So if you get in the habit of taking 4 or 5 days to ship an item, potential buyers are going to see that on your profile. And so that's one reason why you want to make sure that you're shipping items out in a timely manner. Not only that, but if you ship items out quickly, you'll probably also get some great feedback in the form of love notes from people who comment on the fact that you were able to ship quickly, and you may even get repeat buyers in the future, because not only did people love the items that they purchased from you, but they love their experience with you. They love that you got that item shipped out to them as quickly as possible, and therefore they're willing to shop from you again. These are the 5 steps to selling on Poshmark. Now, once you get more and more comfortable with selling on Poshmark, make sure that you check out this video here with more advanced selling strategies for Poshmark. This video has information on how to use Poshmark seller tools, how to run a sale, how to message potential buyers, etc. Or you can check out this playlist right here filled with videos that have a ton of Poshmark tips and hacks and tricks, all videos that will help you learn how to sell even more on Poshmark and make more money. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!